What's up everyone, it's Blandon here from iRefi Mortgages. Today I want to share with you one of the most profound financial concepts that's changed a lot of the decision making in my life and how I have applied it, and hopefully you can see some new perspectives for yourself if you have not heard of this concept before. So this is by Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, who also came up with this cash flow quadrant up here. And what he said is that there are 4 types of people in this economy. He breaks it down as E, S, B, I. And what that stands for is that E stands for employee who has a job, S stands for self-employed who owns a job, B stands for business owner who owns a system that works for them, while I is investor who owns assets that generates income for them. So 80% of the population belongs to this side of the quadrant, while 20% of the population belongs to this side of the quadrant. What's really interesting though is that only 20% of the wealth is on that side, while 80% on this side. So what are they doing differently? You know, the people on this side, they're trading their time for money because everyone has limited capacity and how much they can work, and they're basically trading dollars for hours. And on this side, however, people are making money in their sleep. So for example, they're trading dollar for more dollars. So how do you apply as a homeowner or someone who has a mortgage? If you want to become mortgage free, you can pay your mortgage off while you're an employee. It might take you 20 to 30 years. So you don't really need to become an investor. But after you become mortgage free, how can you actually stop working and still enjoy the same kind of lifestyle? So really, if you need to build passive income, you really need to get more leverage out of the equity or the money that you're, or the wealth that you're building up. So that's why you need to come on this side if you want to become financially free. So what is financially free? This is described by Robert Kiyosaki as the day you can stop working and still enjoy the same living standards. So this is actually quite far away still if you're mortgage free. So it becomes our mission for us to help people shift from this side onto this side, and that's one of the mission for iRefi. So I want to share with you a little bit about my own story and my first $100,000 story. When I first finished university, I got into sales, and I was doing commissions. I was trading time for money. I was self-employed, and I worked my ass off. Okay, I worked 60 to 70 hours, and it was a tough grind. And I would say, I probably worked an accumulated of 6,000 hours in my first year, and it took me actually 2 years to make that first $100,000. And the second $100,000 I made was in properties. So I invested in an investment property, and although the cash flow wasn't super strong, I made $100,000 in capital gains. I went to open homes every weekend for 6 months, and I would say I probably spent 60 to 80 hours. And what happened is it also took me 2 years to make the $100,000 in capital gains. And I actually put no money down at all to buy my first property. My parents had a property of their own, and I was able to use a bit of their equity, use it as a deposit. So my parents, they only borrowed some money, and I was able to pay interest on that for them, and I put that down as a deposit, and I borrowed 100%. So I made 100,000 with the equity that my mom and dad had built. So I was getting a lot of good leverage out of the assets that my parents had built up. So you might have heard that I just said leverage of several times, and that's actually the biggest difference between the people on this side and on this side. They leverage three things: their time, their money, and most importantly, their knowledge. So even though the business owner or investor, they might not have all the answers in the world. And especially true when you're a mum and dad, average sort of family where you're working hard in your jobs. So what you really want to do is whatever you have built up, you want to get the maximum leverage out of it. And so to do that, you need to build an A team. And what is an A team? A team stands for advisor, who is a mortgage advisor. That's the person you want to start off with to sort of look at your options around your borrowing capacity, which bank's going to lend you more money, how can you utilize your equity in your property to buy more properties. This is sort of your first point of contact. The next person that you need on your team is an agent. So real estate agent who knows very well around very much around the property prices and sort of each area, how much things can rent out for, and things to look out for in an actual property. The third person you want on your team is an accountant. So accountant, they're dealing with tax. How can you structure your mortgage in a way that's going to sort of protect your assets as well as give you the most tax savings. And then the fourth person you need is an attorney, which is a lawyer or solicitor who can tell you what you can or what you cannot do. They sort of help you a lot of protection on your assets as well around setting up trust and will. And lastly, if you're trying to build your property portfolio, you might want an architect who can show you what are the potentials in your property, whether or not you can subdivide it, you can build minor dwelling to actually unlock some of the cash flow in your properties. So building a team is very important because Jim Rohn, one of the motivators, he said, you're the average of the 5 people you have around you. And if you don't have 5 good advisors around you, it's going to be really tough to transit over there because you're not really getting the maximum leverage of your time, money, and your knowledge. And it's really important to have all 5 because I can tell you, I'm quite biased. I'm going to always tell you to buy more properties more often than not. And agents, more often than not, they're going to tell you to sell your property. So they're quite optimistic on this side. While the accountant and attorney or lawyer is probably more pessimistic, and they'll tell you to not spend so much, to not do this or not do that. And so it's really important to get both perspective. While the architect, if you just have an architect, maybe you won't get anything done because they're a perfectionist. But I'll sort of give you an example of extremes. You'll have good accountants who are very good at being optimistic as well, or you get an advisor who's very risk adverse as well. So having a good mix team is very important. So to sum up, if you're wanting to get the maximum leverage, you need to build an A team. And I've got some case studies down below. It's called How Can You Become Mortgage Free 10 to 20 Years Sooner without actually increasing your repayments. Hopefully you found this video helpful. We also got a Facebook group called the MHQ Nation, where we share some of the case studies as well as some updates on rates, etc. See you guys next time.